So thank you guys for coming. I am Tilly. I am the workshop coordinator for ASURE, aka the Affiliated Students for Undergraduate Research and Engagement. We also have with us our peer mentor, one of our peer mentors, Julissa, and she is someone that you can go to for abstract writing advice, research advice, things like that. And Julis is going to talk a little bit about ASURE later in this presentation. But let's get started and dive into writing research abstracts and the Undergraduate Research Symposium. So by the end of this workshop, you'll be able to understand what you want to get across when you're writing an abstract. You'll understand the anatomy of an abstract, and you'll be able to write and edit abstracts for academic conferences and of course, the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And you will also know how to submit abstracts to the Undergraduate Research Symposium. The submission process is very, very easy this year, and we will talk you through that. So first, a little bit about the Undergraduate Research Symposium. It is in its 11th year this year, so it's been going on for a while. It is a great place for undergraduates who are doing projects of all types to share their work and connect with other student researchers and hone their communication skills. It's open to all UO undergrads and LCC undergrads, also McNair visiting scholars. And it uses a broad definition of research. So it includes work from students who are from all disciplines. We get creative work submissions and creative performances. We also get things from, of course, the social sciences, the humanities, when people are working on theses or term projects and things like that. I participated in the symposium last year for the first time. I'm a linguistics major, and I've worked in a linguistics lab for most of the time I've been in college. And most of my time working in that lab had been spent working on a specific grant, investigating linguistic perception and production. And so last year, the PI of the lab and now my thesis advisor recommended that the group of undergrads who work on that grant take that research and present it at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. And we were a little nervous about it. We were like, I don't know, that sounds high stakes. But our advisor was like, go for it. It's a very great starting point to get conferences, and it's a great opportunity. And I'm very glad that she encouraged us to do it, and we did it. We presented our poster as a team, and very unexpectedly, we won the College of Arts and Sciences Poster Award for Humanities. And so that's another great thing about the Undergraduate Research Symposium. You get a bunch of presentation experience, but you also have the chance to win awards, and that's really exciting. And so it definitely gives undergrads an opportunity to share their projects and connect with other researchers and get a real sense of how conferences are kind of conducted, and it prepares you to participate in other conferences. This year it's going to be virtual, and it will be May 27th, and we're planning, along with other committees and things like that, a bunch of other fun activities that are going to go on around the Undergraduate Research Symposium. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So a lot of people that think that to participate in the symposium, you can only present your honors thesis research, but in fact, that is not true. You can present a bunch of works from any kind. You can present, for example, a term project that you've been working on. You can talk to your professor and you can get some guidance about writing an abstract for things like that for a project that you've done for a class. You can also present your independent research, or like we did last year, if you're working with a lab already, ask your PI or the person that's supervising your work in the lab if you can present at the Undergraduate Research Symposium. I think that most professors would be very, very excited to help you out and support you participating in the symposium. So you absolutely do not need to be in an honors program to participate in the symposium. You can present a project that's been going on for a long time or just a one-term project, and all disciplines participate. Like I said, we get a ton of submissions from, we have things from like creative music performances. Last year we had some poetry performances, things like that. So there are a couple of categories that we put presentations in for the Undergraduate Research Symposium. We get a lot of posters. In posters, they're basically like a little overview of your research. And with your poster, after you create your poster, you do about a 5-minute video, I think, that goes along with that. And there will also be live sessions, I believe, for the symposium this year, so you can interact with other student researchers during a specific period of time. There will also be oral presentations, which instead of using a poster, it uses slides, and it's a longer format generally. Data stories are similar to oral presentations, except they're more data focused and numbers focused and things like that. Of course, there are also creative works presentations. Last year, since we had the symposium online, we have the presentations from last year on the Undergraduate Research Symposium YouTube channel, along with some other workshops and tutorials that ASURE has put together to help support people and get ready for the symposium. So Jules is going to share the PowerPoint slides for this presentation, so you'll have access to these links. And also check out ASURE's website for tutorials on how to create your presentations. So there are so many reasons to participate besides resumes and putting it on your resume in grad school applications, which it is a great thing to put on your resumes and grad school applications. It shows that you're excited about research and that you've gotten your research out there. And it gives you a great opportunity to practice your presentation skills and your communication skills. And that's important for everything, no matter what you decide to do after college, whether it's research or not. Being able to explain things in a concise and way that's accessible to everyone is a really important skill to have. And of course, like I mentioned, you have opportunities to win money, to win awards for your work, which is really a great opportunity. So the submission process for the Undergraduate Research Symposium is super accessible. It's very easy. So first, you register by April 12th for your project. I did this weeks and weeks ago. It took me less than 10 minutes. It was very easy. So you go onto the Undergraduate Research Symposium website and you register for yourself. All you need is the title of the work that you're planning on presenting, what type of presentation you want to do, so whether that's like poster, oral presentation, creative, data story, whatever you want to do. You also need the name of your co-presenters if you have co-presenters, if you're doing the research in a team. And you also need your faculty mentor's name and email address, and that's it. You just submit that information by April 12th. And then after that registration deadline has closed, you will get a follow-up email asking you to submit your abstract for the Undergraduate Research Symposium by April 24th. And then after you submit your abstract, you will upload your presentation by May 18th. So once you register for the symposium on April 12th and you confirm by submitting your abstract, you're into the symposium. You're not going to get disqualified unless you write something like nonsensical for your abstract. So this is a very low stakes way to practice abstract writing and presentations and also get some really good experience. So by registering and just submitting something for your abstract, you're in and you're going to participate in the symposium. So the abstract requirements for the Undergraduate Research Symposium are that you need a title that's maximum 30 words, and you also need an abstract body, which is maximum 250 words, which is not a lot of words. And so we're going to talk about today how to be precise and concise in your abstract writing and how to communicate your research and your ideas in the most accessible way and in a concise way. So what is an abstract? An abstract is really a big picture summary of your research. It doesn't have to be detail oriented, but it kind of sells your project. It gets the big ideas across. And so once you kind of learn the abstract structure, because if you're going to do research such as thesis research and things like that, you're probably going to be submitting abstracts in your research to other conferences or applying for awards for your research. And that requires you to describe your research in sort of an abstract format. And so practicing submitting an abstract now for the Undergraduate Research Symposium gives you an opportunity to learn the structure and then learn how to adapt abstract structure and research communication structure to other contexts. So the basic anatomy of an abstract, and these are the anatomy pieces that the Undergraduate Research Symposium folks recommend. Of course, you have to have an informative title. You have introductory sentences. You have a hypothesis or a question statement, which is, what are you investigating? You have your methods, which is, how did you investigate it? Your results, what did you find from your investigation? And your conclusion, what does the results mean? And the significance, what does that mean broader, in a broader context? What does your research mean for the person that's reading it? What does it mean for the field generally? And how does this research make the world better or advance human knowledge, kind of thing? And so the results and conclusion are kind of related. And so we're going to kind of talk about those in terms of one chunk. And I think that the significance is always my favorite part of an abstract because I get this really big picture sense of what the research means, and that's very exciting. So when you're drafting your significance, I think that's really important. In your intro sentences, you give the reader a toolbox to understand the rest of what you're going to say in your abstract. If you're doing a presentation, for example, in like the natural sciences or the social sciences, you might want to give the reader an overview of what previous research has said about what you're investigating. So starting your abstract with research shows that, or other studies demonstrate that, is a good way to kind of introduce the toolbox and explain what's already been done. And that kind of helps you go into the next part of the abstract as well. If you're doing a creative piece, you could give some background on perhaps the medium, what other artists have done with this medium, and things like that. So giving however you would explain this to someone who is educated but uninformed about your field, what would you want them to know before diving into reading the rest of the abstract? And next, your intro sentences should lead very naturally into your hypothesis or purpose statement. And I think this is a really good opportunity in the abstract to really sell your study and your research. Making the research question really clear by saying things like, this study asks, or this research is unique, or this is the first study to explore this, after the reader has had a sense of what's already been done, really makes your abstract start off strong and that you're already explaining why this research is important. So in methods, you want to give a broad overview of what you did in your research, but you also want to be specific enough that people understood what you did. The methods help kind of tag team with the research queue. It's a very natural partner. So it should be something like, to answer the research question, we conducted this experiment and XYZ happened. And if you're doing a social sciences or humanities project, explain what you did. If it doesn't have to be like a perception experiment that you ran in a lab or a chemistry experiment that you ran in a lab, say how you did your project. What was the work that you did to arrive at the conclusions that you did? So in your results section, first, you're just showing what you found after your investigation. So the investigation shows that, or the results of the experiment indicate that, and this should be kind of very related directly to the methods and tie back into the research question. And the results they fit together like a puzzle piece with the significance section, which is, why should we care? So you're going like a kind of a triangle from small with the results to big with the significance. So from your results, why should we care about this research? Why is it important to the reader? And what does this study inform about the field generally, or about what the reader's daily life? And how really think about how can the results of this study or the investigation or the creative work be implemented in someone's daily life? Because making someone care about your research is really gonna, it's a powerful thing, and it really gets people excited. I think that perhaps the most important thing in your abstract is that, and in science communication generally, is to make your research communication accessible for a general audience. So you should be able to explain your research to an educated audience that is uninformed about your field. And this should be reflected in both the structure of your abstract, like we just talked about. So one piece should really flow into another, and that makes it very easy for a reader to follow, especially if they're reading tons and tons of abstracts when they're reviewing abstracts for a conference. And very clear scientific communication should also be reflected in how you unpack jargon in your abstract. So whenever there's a term that you think someone in the field might not understand this, you should either not use that term and find another way to explain that concept, or use that term but then briefly define it. And it's very important to make the abstract understandable for the general public, but at the same time, you have to balance the word limit of the abstract with what you can explain. And so if you're thinking, wow, I'm going to run out of words if I explain all of this, most of writing, I think, is, especially with science communication, is going back and editing. So start with the things that you think are going to be easiest to unpack, and then go to the bigger things and reduce from there. So I like to talk about the title after I talk about the structure of the abstract, because I think that it's easiest to come up with a title after you've written your abstract. So the title should be kind of like a teaser for what's to come in your abstract, and it should be very informative. And so which title do you guys think is best? A, learning processes and learning new sounds, linguistic processes and learning new sounds, or B, the competitive relationship between linguistic perception and production when learning a new sound contrast. The best title is actually B, and it's because those of you who voted A, you're probably thinking B is a really long title. And it is. Abstract titles can be really, really long. But it's important to remember that you got to be more informative about your title than worrying about the length. So you've got 30 words. Use that up. And if you think, wow, that titling strategy specifically, this one is not for me, there are tons of other titling strategies. So the mini summary, this is in fact the title that we used for our poster that won the Humanities Award last year, is doing a mini summary. We use the mini summary strategy for naming our abstract. You can also use a question. So a great example is Yuzuka in Japan. Why are they still there? That's a great title. That gives the reader a real question, a real idea of what they're going to say in the abstract. You know that by reading the abstract at the end, you're going to understand who the Yuzuka are and why they're in Japan. And there's an implication that they should leave, but they haven't, and you're going to find out about that. Another way to name an abstract is by naming it after accomplishing a goal. So if you're investigating something like the best way to do this, naming your abstract about that is a great strategy. And you can also combine strategies. So this last title, it's a fantastic title, I think. It won an award last year. That presentation won an award. It's Peace Canal. The Peace Canal question mark, it gives you the sense that the presenter is going to question whether it's really a peace canal. And then it gives you a mini summary of what's going to happen in the presentation. These abstracts are on the Undergraduate Research Symposium website as good abstracts. They're on there as example abstracts for their fields. So these are really good abstracts already. So when you're thinking about how can these be improved, what do you like about them, and identifying parts. Take a second to read these. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Chantel. Exactly. So yeah, this abstract has a really clear structure. It gives the intro, the research question, the methods, and the results. Do you guys think that it could hit one of those points harder? For example, we have the results section. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Chantel. It's missing the significance part. So the significance part is a really great part of the abstract. And this person has over 100 words to talk about the significance. And so if you're unsure of what to use your word count on, I vote significance. If you've got words left over, explain the significance of it. Why is it important and why does it matter? Okay, so I think that the writer does a really great job of unpacking the jargon in a bunch of places. Like they define what Drosophila is, and they kind of give the reader a great toolbox to understand what they're going to talk about by talking about cell differentiation. But perhaps the writer could unpack a little bit more what all of this means, what gene mutations means, and things like that. And so that's another place that they could use their word count, is to make this a little bit more accessible for someone who doesn't necessarily study genetics. And we're going to run through another one. So I'm going to give you guys a second to read this one again. And again, we're looking for if you can identify parts of this abstract, what you like about this abstract, and what you think could be improved. Abstract, it's a great way to take this from a good abstract to a really fantastic abstract, is to expand on the results. And this abstract could definitely talk about the significance more. I think that this abstract does a really great job of showing, yes, exactly, and a more descriptive title. Yes, that person's got 28 more words, and it's a really interesting project. So giving the reader some more information about what they're going to find in the abstract is a really helpful thing. And I think that this abstract does a really great job of showing how you can introduce a project that is not like a natural science, is what we usually think of research, but is how you can introduce an art project. They give a really, really great intro and a toolbox talking about the lost wax method of casting a bronze sculpture. And now I know what that is when I'm going into reading the abstract. And so generally, when you're thinking about writing abstracts, think big picture, use accessible language, sell your project. Don't be afraid of selling your project. You've worked really hard on it, and sell it. It's important, get it out there. People say that you should write in abstracts tend towards the active voice and don't use the passive voice. As a linguistics major, I know that the passive voice is a really powerful tool, but there is this kind of rhetoric around using it. So if you're going to use the passive voice, it's a really powerful tool, but maybe only use it once or twice in your abstract. And a good way to get around using the passive voice too much is by saying this study investigates blah, 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 instead of using first person pronouns and avoiding first person pronouns instead of opting to the passive, saying like this study investigates or this project investigates blah, blah, blah. Of course, check the word count for typos. And you don't need to include numbers like if you ran participants for this experiment, you don't need to include the sample size. You don't need to include statistical analysis numbers. You don't need to include abbreviations or things like that that can make your abstract less comprehensible to a general audience. And you don't need to include references for this specific abstract. When you're submitting abstracts to other conferences, though, the requirements might vary. And if you have research in progress, don't be like, well, we don't know the results of the research yet because it's not done. Valid to have the research that's not done. That is absolutely fine. But what do you think would be the outcome? Or if you're unsure, what are a few possibilities? And what would those possibilities mean for the reader? So still go into that possible results and significance. We've talked about this a lot, but thinking big picture and using accessible language are the most important things, I think. And these are things that grown-up scientists are still mastering as adults. So getting started on this early in college, you're head and shoulders above other people when you're talking about general communication and science communication especially. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Jules to talk about other resources on campus and ASURE generally.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So I'm Jules. I'm a peer mentor for ASURE. And so like Tilly said, these are some resources that we also offer along with ASURE. And so we're in compliance with the UROP and then CURE. So if you're, in need of some research help and getting started with research in general, you could also reach out to UROP and CURE alongside ASURE. So basically what we do in ASURE is we're student ran and we help other students get involved in research. And if they're already involved in research, we help them, we guide them through their research process, such as the symposium workshop. And along with that, we do classroom visits on Zoom, and we hold peer mentoring office hours. And so that's all through the student run organization, but there's also office hours, which I'll go into more detail on the next slide, that are ran by staff in different departments, so you could get a different perspective. But we're basically a student run organization, and we're here to help you all with your research process. So yeah, so these are our winter term office hours, and these are the peer mentor office hours. And so there's mine on the right, and then Madeline's in the middle, and Alexis is on the left. And so we're students. And so if you want a perspective from a student's perspective who has done research or who knows a little bit more about the research in any department, and you don't need to be a human physiology major, for instance, to come to my peer mentor office hours. Or you don't need to be a psychology major to go to Madeline's, for instance, but we're here to help you, and you could log into Microsoft Teams and join us in our office hours weekly. For a different perspective, you could also go to the faculty leaders office hours, which are located on this platform here, and they're also on Microsoft Teams. And so this gives you another option to get a different perspective on the research and the different kinds of opportunities there are that the faculty leaders know more about and are affiliated with.
Thank you so much for coming, and I'll stick around after for a little bit so you guys can ask questions. And thank you so much.